Good Monday afternoon, everybody. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with an update for you on Tropical Storm Elsa on this July 5th, 2021. All right, so here's the latest of what's going on. Elsa has made landfall along the southwest coast of Cuba. It is slightly weaker today, a little bit of some wind shear working to tilt the system, so winds are down sustained at 60 miles per hour, so still a middle grade tropical storm. Now, a second landfall is expected, though, after it reemerges to the north into the Gulf of Mexico, and that secondary landfall could be somewhere along Florida's west coast tomorrow night and early Wednesday morning. Here's the presentation now on satellite imagery. Again, we're referencing the infrared imagery here, and that tells us the temperatures of the cloud tops. We're seeing some whites and blacks showing up there, and that's cold thunderstorms or very strong thunderstorms in the higher levels of the atmosphere, colder temperatures, but notice it's not very symmetrical there, and that center is located right around in here. You can see on the storm track there moving inland over the southwest coast of Cuba. Pressure's up a little bit. Wind speed, or speed forward I should say, is to the northwest at 14 miles per hour. Has slowed down significantly from a few days ago when it was moving at over 30 miles per hour, and that forced it to actually wobble and tilt a little bit. Some self-inflicted wind shear there as we got into like Saturday, that was. All right, Tropical Storm Elsa right now, the latest storm track from the National Hurricane Center. There are some reported gusts of around 75 miles an hour. It's not over land for very long. It reemerges to the north of Havana, and then into the Gulf of Mexico. Very warm waters there, so we'll start to re-strengthen again by this evening. By tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., we're up to 65 mile per hour winds. Still a tropical storm, but on the higher end of things. Going into Tuesday evening, we're at 65 miles per hour. We are just off to the southwest of Tampa, Florida. Keep in mind, a track to the west of the west coast of Florida does bring the strongest winds onshore, so we'll still likely see some storm surge flooding here with that water piling into Tampa Bay as we get into Tuesday evening. Gusts could be higher than 65, up to 75, maybe 80 mile per hour wind gusts within that. It continues its way north, at least as it's projected now, and by Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., we're at 65 mile an hour winds, and it's moving onshore, possibly somewhere near Horseshoe Beach along that Big Bend area along the west coast of Florida. We'll see how things go. This is the cone of uncertainty, remember, so it could fall anywhere within that. It could be farther off to the west. It could be much closer to the coastline and move inland a little bit sooner than scheduled here. Overland, it does weaken down to 35 miles per hour quickly, so that's tropical depression, still depression Thursday morning, and then as it shoots through the Carolinas and reemerges into the Atlantic Ocean, it is expected to become once again a tropical storm as it shoots off very quickly to the northeast into the Canadian Maritimes. So, factors to consider here with Tropical Storm Elsa. It is interacting right now with enhanced terrain over Cuba, so that it is disrupting the storm structure overall. What happens, though, when Elsa enters the Gulf of Mexico? Will increasing westerly wind shear limit Elsa from taking full advantage of the very warm sea surface temperatures? Now, we need 80 degrees or warmer in terms of the water temperatures, and we have that on its projected storm track. We're in the low to middle 80s, so there's plenty of fuel available for Elsa to take advantage of. The only factor against that would be the increasing wind shear. All the shades here, the green, the blue, is increasing wind shear, unfavorable area as it moves to the north, but it's going to see, does it counteract it taking advantage of those warm waters and strengthening? Let's see how the global models see things. What you're looking at here is a comparison between the GFS and the European model. The yellow lines is going to be the GFS. The red lines will be the European model. So pretty good consensus here in the short term, right? They're both over the same area. We start to see them diverge a little bit as we get into Tuesday morning. One's a little bit faster, one's a little bit slower. Similar intensities, though, when you see those isobars, which is what those lines are, spaced very close together, that's a more intense system. They race off to the north. GFS is a little bit faster, pretty much due west of Tampa by tomorrow evening at 7 p.m., which is pretty much in line with what the National Hurricane Center is saying. European lagging behind a little bit, but a slightly stronger system. As we get into Wednesday morning, before the sun comes up, we have the GFS already making landfall again somewhere near Horseshoe Beach along the Big Bend in Florida. European, much stronger system here, possibly playing into the factor that it could be taking advantage of those warm sea surface temperatures and strengthening and overcoming that westerly wind shear, and still has it offshore by late Wednesday morning. Out ahead of that, plenty of tropical warnings up in the orange tropical storm warnings, meaning that tropical storm conditions are imminent within the next 24 to 36 hours. A little bit farther to the north, a little more lead time there. Watches are still up. They will likely be replaced with warnings here in the short term. A sometimes overlooked factor in terms of a tropical system is the possibility that they could contain severe weather. Aside from the obvious flooding, storm surge, and winds that you'd find with a tropical storm or hurricane, but since there's already rotation introduced in the atmosphere, the storm itself is rotating, the outermost bands can easily spin up a tornado. So the Storm Prediction Center says, out of a 5-level system, it's up to a level 2 through much of central and southern Florida. So be on the lookout for that, especially close to coastal areas. It could certainly develop as a waterspout and move onshore there. So that'll be something meteorologists in Florida will be keeping a close eye on through the day tomorrow and Wednesday. All right, how do the models see things? If you've been watching these videos for the past few days, we were talking about a big divergence as we got farther out in time. I mean, these were all the way from the Atlantic Ocean all the way towards Mississippi and Alabama. Now there's much better consensus and agreement there with the computer models, and we look at the GFS, the ensemble, which is the GFS model, run a bunch of different times, just tweaked a little bit. Even this is showing some much better consensus than we had even yesterday afternoon, when we still had some ensembles offshore and some well to the west. So this is becoming much clearer that it's going to be taking that track along that cone of uncertainty. With that track brings plenty of tropical moisture, rainfall. Some of the models picking up on 4 to 6 inches, especially towards Tampa, down to Fort Myers, and all of that moving onshore towards Jacksonville, and eventually into southeastern Georgia and through the Carolinas. The good news is that that's all we have to talk about. Much of the rest of the Atlantic is nice and quiet. No other tropical clusters or tropical invests we're keeping an eye on at all. In fact, it's not just the Atlantic. The Eastern Pacific and the Central Pacific, all quiet and closed for business for the time being. All right, if you've got a question about the tropics, reach out on social media. I've got all these new accounts here at KHOU, Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. We'll have another update for you later on this evening.